Skrauss. Cave Dweller, I am here because I'm a narcissist. I am narcissist. I'm really not. People think I am, though, because, I don't know, I don't have any problems telling you how much I love my own ideas. And if I didn't love my ideas, why would I proceed doing anything with them? There's no reason. You should just love your idea. I mean, if you're going to be an artist and you don't love your idea, if you're constantly putting yourself, just don't even waste my time. This episode of the Skrauss Live on whatever platform we're on is This Kiwi. Sponsored by This Kiwi. When I was in the Navy, periodically we would get kiwis. And one time on the mess decks, I saw this kid eating a kiwi. Kid. Everybody seems like a kid to me. Even my grandpa. My grandpa was younger than me when he died. He was 91. This kid was eating a kiwi just like this, like an apple on the mess decks. And I was like, how can you do that? And then his buddy next to him, they were tight because they were both Hispanic, got all in my face. What's the matter with that? Well, I'll tell you what's the matter with that. I can imagine all those hairs going down my throat, scratching. It's like eating a cactus. Turns out it's not like eating a cactus. Wait a minute. I feel like my mic is too hot. Let's see if we can turn this volume down. Recording level. Press hold key. Where's it? Where's the press hold key? Okay, released. Hang on. Wait one. Mic level. Taking it down. There. Oh! Also, let's do this. Boom. See, I bet that takes care of it. If I don't mute, no, we're still hot. Oh, maybe it's this. No? Okay, well, I don't know what the issue is. It's just saying we're hot. We are hot. I can't raise my voice. I should be able to raise my voice as much as I want. It's my stream, This Kiwi, brought to you by. Now then, can you see what's going on in this painting? Looks really great, doesn't it? Peg-leg monkey's lost. The suit here is too much like the background. I think I'm going to add a little white to this. And to that. They recommend not eating while you paint. I recommend not eating while you live stream because essentially it's talking with your mouth full. I need magic sauce, but instead of using magic sauce, I'm going to use this gloss gel brilliant. Gel brillante. I want to make a transparent white overlay. Ideally, when you're using white, you should not use it as an overlay. I always do because I always get my colors wrong. You should just mix your color correctly the first time. I'm going to put a little here along this leg, a little here, and then a little there. This table I'm going to have to, or this piece of floor I'm going to add purple to. That's actually a couch. I've got to make that green again. And I want to add some bright blue to the chair here to mimic the wall and make him stand out more. So with those goals in mind, let us begin the begin. Don't forget to do the side. The side did not get any yellow, so it's going to be weird, but we're doing it anyway. And then here, gentle wipe off. Gently wiping it off because I don't want it white. Just want it subdued. Well, I do want it white or here. This I want subdued, but I'm not painting that. I'm painting. This needs to be lighter. That's all that there is to it. There's an interesting checkerboard moment here. Okay. That is that on that. I'm going to use all this extraneous white on my palette. Oh. There's an interesting flat thing going on here where the light comes to his leg, but not on this side of the leg. On this side of the leg, the floor appears to go around it. Then you have this shape standing straight up. I really love that, but I may have to subdue it. Here's how I'm going to do it. There we go. Now then, purple around the edges. I'm using transparent ultramarine violet. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to say we are here. When it gets to here, I'm going to talk about anime again. When it gets to here, we'll see if I can come up with something awesome to say. When it gets to here, I'm going to talk about riots in Minneapolis. It's only 5 minutes away. Oh. And when it gets to there, we'll be done. Clock does not represent actual time. It just represents noon to 1, universally. Whoops. Okay, I'm adding white to this. We'll see what happens. I had not intended that, but here it is. Yeah, I think that was a good choice. The good thing about white is that it doesn't necessarily add light, visible light, but it often adds distance. Because in the distance, particularly when you're mixing with blue, in the distance, objects skew blue and white. They skew, well, gray, but very light gray. Everything sort of blends into the same monotone light gray blue in the distance, the farther back you get. So you can fake that in a painting and use it to your advantage. Okay. standing way back from this. Typically I get right up on it. Adding some to the front end here. Just to give the idea of light. So here I am again talking about white, using white to give the idea of light. That's not what you're supposed to do. I try to avoid it because it doesn't make things lighter; it just makes them creamy. Or, like I said, it's useful for optical effects. For instance, I'm using yellow to indicate light. And that's what this is. This is a splash of light. This I've subdued with kind of white subduage. It's not powerful enough. So I gotta powerful it up a bit here. Okay. I don't want to do too much. I didn't want to do any, really. Oh, saints preserve us. The Lady of the Lake candle was out because I left it on for 2 days. I didn't turn it off when we were finished last time. Thank you for your help, Lady of the Lake. I don't know what to do with Lady of the Lake. I like her because she's called Lady of the Lake, which reminds me of my youth as an Excalibur. But yet, you would think that that's all it would take to create a rapport. But no, it doesn't. Ishu Legua and Saint Expedite, please bring us today the gifts of breaking through hesitation. We want it now, and we're taking it. Thank you for helping us. Disco Jesus. The shiniest, most rockin' Jesus there is, even though disco and rock are at odds with each other. Frankly, I think the most rockin' music is often disco influenced. I love In Excess. I think they rock way harder than Led Zeppelin. That's my opinion. That's my opinion because I love to hear multiple things going on at once, coming together to create a whole. That's why I love Peep Show by Susie and the Banshees. Great album. And so is Tinderbox. These albums are great because so many things are going on at once. It's almost orchestral. Zeppelin, you got 4 things going on at once, and they're all loud. Sometimes they let the guitar breathe. Other times they sound like the blues, which is boring. Blues equals boring. That's my musical opinion. But let's get back to Disco Jesus. Thank you, Disco Jesus, for these blessings we are about to receive. In your holy name, amen. 48 hours needs 48. 48. This coffee is 48 hours old. Nice and cool and refreshing. 48 hours needs 48 thrills. 48 thrills. Dun 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 dun. So you see up on the shoulder, I had some white to indicate that white was spilling over his shoulder. And now I'm hitting it with raw sienna, and it's really bright against the darkness that was there just a second ago. Over here I have white and yellow, but I think raw sienna will be enough. This line of white, I'll hit it, go over it with raw sienna. Just want to give the impression that light is coming over his shoulder. And yet, against the light, he appears darker. If you notice, if you look at a tree, that's in front of a house, and then the top of the tree is in front of the sun, the part of the tree that's in front of the sun or the sky will appear darker than the part of the tree that's in front of the house, because the house is darker than the sky, and your eye is adjusting. So when you have something in front of a light source, like this window, it should be dark and black, and then over on this side it should be not as dark, because it's against the darker backness. And which reminds me, I should make this much darker because it is in contrast to that window. So I'm going to do that with a little black and some, I want to keep it in that yellow scheme, so I want burnt sienna or raw umber. I'll mix burnt umber with some raw sienna, and that should do the trick. If I can find my burnt umber. I got some raw sienna down on the palette. It's hard for me to, this is burnt umber. What color would you say that is? Black. That's right, you would call it black. I should just remember it's the one with that tube that's so twisty crispy. Oh, I'm past due on talking about violence in Minneapolis. First off, I have two things I want to say. I have two opinions on this matter. One opinion is that the word racism is mismanagement of the actual discussion of the actual problem. We should not use racism or racist. We should use the word xenophobic. Almost always. Until this morning, when I found out that there were riots in Minneapolis, I thought it should always be the case that we don't say racism but say xenophobia instead, because it's a clash of cultures. It's not a clash of skin tone or cultural heritage or nationality. Race. It's not about race. There's only really one race. If we divide it into Occidental and Oriental, then maybe we could say there's two. But and then in that you have East Asian and Western Asian and African. And anyway, so we think of it in terms of color, skin color and facial features, predominantly. I'm saying that doesn't help anything to think of it that way. We know those details are there. Most of us don't think that those details make up a person. What we think makes up the person is the culture, and often these details broadcast the culture that the person is from. They're not always accurate, but it gives you a good starting point. Now then, the cultures, black culture in America and white culture in America, are like two separate nations. They're like two nations intermingled, and they don't get along. We don't understand each other. We're a little bit put off by the other culture. In the area of Milwaukee I live, predominantly white, I rarely see a black person come into my neighborhood. Occasionally it happens. And vice versa. When I'm in the black side of Milwaukee, I stand out like a sore thumb. It's because we don't like to mix. Just like you can't mix your friends when you try to bring them over at your birthday party. You can't mix groups of friends. You can't mix these cultures. They don't mix because of xenophobia. We're afraid of the other culture. It makes us uncomfortable. And it goes both ways. We're just not feeling right in our skin. We're wearing somebody else's clothing. We want to get out. The only cure for that is familiarization. So we should always use the word xenophobia. I thought that until these riots occurred, and I don't know anything about the guy that was killed. I don't know if he was a scumbag or an upright citizen, or some gradation in between. I don't know anything about him, except that he wasn't treated kindly, and then he was killed. He was actually, I don't even need to say that nicely. He was treated poorly. He was manhandled and roughhoused, and then died by a cop who apparently has multiple counts against him for such behavior, complaints. And the people in Minneapolis rioted and stormed the police station. Because we're in the world of Antifa, I think riots are for idiots and morons and people that are standing up for something they don't even understand. But in this case, I think the riot was the perfect thing to do. I think it was right and morally upright. It was the responsible thing, and I'm glad it happened. If you can't stand up to the police on your own, and if you don't stand up to the police, they turn it into a police state. And so I'm all for the right. I support the rights of Minneapolis. Lots of people are hassled by the police. I was hassled by the police. I was walking through Lake Park on the east side of Milwaukee one day with bare feet, and I was standing between two trees, ancient trees, at least 100-year-old, these two trees, and I was praying. I'm trying to, and this is, Lake Park, incidentally, is built on an Indian burial site. In the 20s, they bulldozed all the mounds, filled in the ravines, and made a park. And there's one mound left, and it has a credibility-lending placard, a historical marker on it. So it's a desecrated graveyard, this park. And I think it's the perfect place to go to connect with the spirit of the land where I live, and see if I can contact or commune somehow with the Native Americans, the Indians, the Ojibwe and Potawatomi, who lived in the area. Milwaukee, the name Milwaukee means gathering place of the waters, because Milwaukee was the UN of the Indian nations, at least of the Midwest, before when we filled in all the swamps and filled in all the ravines and filled in all that, drives me nuts, devoured all the Cream City clay. There's no more Cream City bricks. If you have a Cream City brick, you have a thing that cannot be made again. That clay doesn't exist anymore. So we destroyed everything that was there when we arrived. But the native people had been living there for hundreds of years, thousands of years. I want to connect with them. I'm in the Indian graveyard, which has been desecrated. And I'm praying between these two trees, and I'm looking at this star that's sort of hovering and sort of moving. It's the brightest thing in the sky. And I realize this is either a UFO or an aircraft. But it's just sort of going straight down. And I realize I'm 90% sure it's an aircraft. So I'm just staring at it. And right below it is a cop in a cop car, parked. His windows are open. I can see him inside there, but I'm just staring like right over his head. He thinks I'm staring at him. So he pulls me over and asks to see my ID. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" "I'm walking in the park." "Why are you barefoot?" "I'm walking in the park." You know, people don't walk like that around here. People don't walk barefoot in the park. Not around here, they don't. I didn't have my ID. I just had to give him my social and my name. And he held me up. He detained me. And he called in backup. There was a foot cop with him when he pulled me over. I got pulled over standing still by a cop in a park. He didn't beat me up, fortunately. The knee-jerk response is because I was the right color, but that may be true. I don't know. I didn't believe anything like this could happen, really. Even though it has happened. Well, I mean, the Ronnie King beatings happened when I was in the Navy. So, I don't know. It's up in the air. It's something that needs to be discussed, but it doesn't help to discuss it talking about racism. Except in this instance. Let us return now to our regularly scheduled, non-emotional painting. Batman or Lady of Guadalupe, chthonic figures of the night and darkness and underground. This is standing out a little bit better, but now it's too white. Let's bring the peg-legged monkey out. Wait, what am I mixing up here? I was in the middle of mixing up. Darkness. What was I mixing up? I don't even... I think some darkness. Yeah. A little bit of darkness. Everybody wants somebody sometimes, and some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you, Some of them want to abuse and kill you. Some of them want to you kill them. It's true. Some want you to kill. But don't. I recommend you don't do it. Just do what Jesus would do, which is to say, hang around. Bada bing. Right. I'm going to need even darker because I have so much darkness on top. I have so much black on top. On top of the suit, I'm going to have to add more black. See if we can get it to be more consistent. My ivory black, because it's been in the sun with the rest of my paints. Acrylic paints behave funny as they age. Are we still there? Is it still happening? Is it still going strong? Team. I hope it's going strong. I don't know. I can't tell. I had to actually shut my computer off and start it up again because the screen froze, and I was like, what? What's happening? This happened yesterday, too. I was had a face-to-face computer thing going with somebody on the wires, and my screen went black. So I don't know if my computer's breaking again. If anybody has an idea for a good computer that I can use for live streaming and multiple other things, let me know, because this is my second Lenovo that has started having screen freeze issues. Fluffy tail. Whiteness, the color of whiteness. I mean, blackness. Okie doke. I feel like that's better. Darkness on the wall. That's what I was mixing up this color for. The wall, not the suit. Okay, let's try. Okay, that looks like it's better. When in doubt, make it up. That's how children draw. That's how you should draw. Just be proud. Just be proud that you're making it up, and be bold. Let's see what happens is this. It looks like, oh no, it looked like I was frozen on camera, but it just turns out the delay was of a scene where I was doing exactly what I'm doing now. perfectly still except for the fingertips and the mouth. The mouth, you might think, never stops moving. Not true. It often stops moving. Like when I'm binging on anime. So, Cave Dweller, lately I've been binging on anime. On Netflix anime. In fact, this episode I'm listening to with Jason Horsley and Mystic Joyner, they talk about binging on Netflix as an escape system. And they discuss what are we escaping? We're escaping ourselves. The act of fantasy. And this is an idea I've been thinking about because recently I listened to an episode of Rune Soup with Gordon White, and he read a quote from Ursula K. Le Guin. For some reason, it was totally unrelated to what he was talking about. Le Guin says, escape is in the direction of freedom. So why is escapist fiction a problem? Right? So she's defending her own genre of fiction. Totally unnecessary. And I talked about this last time. I talked about how we look down on fantasy fiction. Well, Horsley and guest are talking about escaping from ourselves. We're escaping from really being in the moment and being alive. And why is that? Why do we do that? They suggest it's because of the horrors of modern life. What is this? Natural spring water. And that's probably true. So we, in sports, we have all these distractions that keep us out of our body, out of the moment, into some projection. Sports, for most of Americans, and fantasy and sci-fi for a smaller amount, but growing in vocality. Anime. So anyway, I'm in binging. What am I escaping from? I'm escaping from my responsibilities, really. My responsibility is as an artist to create things I have to create to market myself so that my creations don't just get thrown into Goodwill bins when I'm dead, which is probably what's going to happen. Anime, and last night I watched like a billion episodes of a thing called, I forgot the name, Kuro Mukuro, giant robot show. Aliens come to Earth, they invade, they're repelled, 450 years later they return. We dig up a guy who's buried in a giant mecha in suspended animation, and he pilots this giant mecha, and it gives us an edge that helps us just barely survive and repulse this expeditionary force. 2 seasons, maybe more. Finds a girl. Girl shares the exact DNA of his princess that he's sworn to protect because he's a samurai, and the princess is dead. And one of the aliens from space is a clone of the princess. So the same DNA, Earth girl and the clone of the princess, they meet. They're like, what? We look the same. There's a mix-up, a mistaken identity, which was wonderful, but it didn't play out. The Netflix shows, they keep them so short. I feel like this idea of her, they abduct her because they think they're recalling one of their agents. And so she's on the space station and has free reign to wander around. And it only lasted an episode. I wanted to see her do more exploration of this place and the mistaken identity and see if she could grow as a character, because she's one of those anime women who's always screaming and afraid of everything. And there's one moment on the space station where the clone, who's from space, has a rival who's trying to kill her. So the girl with the same DNA as the clone meets the rival. The rival tries to kill her, and she gets this look of determination and says, I will not lose. And she's fighting back. Trained soldier. She's a brand new soldier. So she has this knife, fighting a sword, and she's just barely holding her own, but doing it in the sense where her eyes are closed, and she's like going, eh. Kind of a little bit disappointing. Probably more realistic. But it build up, got better and better and better, especially this mistaken identity, and then the clone joins their side and betrays the invading force, and it's still getting pretty good, and then suddenly it's over. But the romance between the samurai and the Earth girl, it builds, and he proposes, and then he ditches her. He leaves her behind on Earth because he has to go to another galaxy to fight the aliens, and he's like, I can't take you with me. It had a good ending. I was satisfied with it. The thing that troubles me is why am I the attraction of these cartoons and comics where it's a boy coming into his power, or in this case a girl, and meeting the love of their life and having adventures and surviving. Why does that break my heart with joy? Why do I embrace this and want more and more? What is the addiction? And it probably has to do with my own powerlessness and sense of not meeting my destiny. So maybe I can be like these characters who have a destiny and they're fulfilling it. In that way, the anime is perfect. I recommend it. It's inspirational. But at some point, you have to turn it off and take the reins of your life. I'm speaking to myself. I have to take up the reins of my life and gallop into the fray. So I want to thank you, Cave Dweller, for watching me here paint, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here painting, because the idea of approaching a painting intimidates me. The idea of approaching a video, that's just like nothing. That's like the fun. That's like going to the playground. So imagine if you were a carpenter and you were always building playgrounds every day that you got to play on at the end of the day. That is what this setup is for me. So thank you. Thank you for being here. If you had a Patreon page, I would support it. But in return, if you love what I'm doing, you can support me on my Patreon page. It's _Skrauss at Patreon. Look me up. Any amount pledged is appreciated. And every new pledge gets a personal email from me thanking you for joining the Cave Dwellers. And there's other prizes you can win that I haven't exactly solidified because I'm inconsistent. I'm always working on being consistent. There's so many things in my personality I'm working on. We'll put that aside for a later episode. He's starting to stand out. If I look at the little version of him in here, he's pretty good. The one that you see, because he's starting to stand out better. The blue makes it look like there's too much underpainting coming through, but that might just be my eyes not being able to see what's happening. There's some purple here. I want to come down underneath him. So let's make that happen. Magic sauce. Try to keep it transparent. I don't want to obscure what's already there. I just want a hint of this to match this. Okay, so what we have here, this is interesting. This line goes right across the edge of the table. You can see the corner of the table is right here. And that totally flattens out the painting. And I like that, but I don't know if I want to do that in this particular moment. So I'm going to bring the floor down a little. Not quite far enough. There it is. All right, so that separation now facilitates the illusion of depth. It's so small, but it's such a small thing, but it's practically direct center of the painting. You connect all the corners with an X and you have the center. It's about there. And it's so close that it would be weird. And it was out of control. If I would have left it, I don't know, it wasn't right. There's something about it that wasn't right. I had to alter it. Okay, so we have underneath the table, we have some lost edges. I need to bring those back into existence. I'm almost out of time, Cave Dweller. It's been fun. It's been real fun. It's been real. It's been awesome. So the lost edge here is the black underneath the table. and the darkness of the edge of the table, meeting together again. Come on down to Revision Gallery, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Come visit me. We'll hang out. We'll eat ho-hos. We will not eat ho-hos. We will eat something and chat and discuss life and things, and I'll put you on my podcast. We are strangers. We'll have a conversation. That is way too white. Cave Dweller, I'm sorry. I can't end the show now. I have to fix this. I've got to do something about that, and it's going to be adding purple over the top of it. I originally had it yellow because yellow was the color of the light that I was using, but I'm just going to have to make it purple because purple is the color of the rug. So much time is wasted looking for tubes of paint that I don't know, it's a little bit Russian blue hue. No, I'm looking for, there it is, ultramarine violet. I love ultramarine violet because it is utterly transparent, unlike dioxazine purple, which is somewhat transparent, but so vibrant that it can almost not be used for anything. I'm just going to smear this around. Some up in here. Give and take, push and pull, back and forth. It's just a rock and roll performance. Okay, and now I've overdone it, and I'm gonna finish. I'm closing it down, Cave Dweller, and it's been great. It's been awesome. I don't know if you've seen any of this because YouTube keeps not working out on me. There's been difficulties these last two episodes. Whatever. I don't care. Do you care? I don't care. It's all working out. We're doing fine. We're doing swell. And Cave Dweller, you know how much I love you because I say it every time. And I wouldn't say if it wasn't true. Well, I might. I might say if it wasn't true. Just so that I can have some schmaltz to spread to grease the wheels of industry. And you coming to my Patreon page. Cave Dweller, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and tell the world that Skrauss speaks and you listen.